I think we're live, man. As Bill O'Reilly would say, we'll do it live.
It
And did
can't.
you have to like give permission to for the recording or?
Nope.
Okay, cool. We are going, man. Cool. Jonathan Evison. I'm definitely going to give you a lot of props. And I should just full disclosure. This is the definition of effective altruism. What you're doing for me now, because you are going to get no benefit from this. You're going to definitely give me a bump. I'm not going to give you a bump. So I appreciate you taking your time, man.
Not a problem, man.
And I know, just like me, you love to be slathered with accolades. So I have a few stories to tell before I actually start interviewing you. Basically about what an amazing person you are, and I know you love compliments.
Yes, I do. Very comfortable with them.
No, you don't. I'm the same way. My manager, I work at Costco. My manager, when every time he gives me the yearly review, I'm like, can we just skip the good stuff and tell me what I need to improve on? So I don't take compliments well, but yes. Full disclosure. Haven't finished it, but I'm about halfway through. Heart of Winter. I think this is your latest one, right?
Yeah,
And this is your ninth
written three
published
novels
book?
since then, but it's the most recently published. But it's still I got three novels I've written since then. So
Wow. Yeah, you are a workaholic.
uh, if
And
I
it's
don't remember the
amazing.
character names, that's why or something like that.
No, I'm really enjoying the story. And at my age, I guess kind of our age, I'm early 50s. We're kind of close. So, a book like this, I can relate to it a lot more now than I could in my 30s, obviously. Um, but yeah, and I think last time I saw you was that you and Willie came to Portland, and I think you kind of talked about this as kind of a love letter to your mom.
Yes, that's it was. I just wanted to write my mom the love story she deserved. One that it's not a boy meets girl, up, Hallmark kind of love story. This is a story of a 70-year marriage that endures in the face of just about every obstacle, self-obfuscation, anything that could ever challenge a marriage, and but it survives, and that's the important part of it. It's about that commitment, and my mom loved it. So she told me it was her second favorite book of mine. So yeah,
Oh, what was her favorite?
I think West of Here was her favorite.
Okay.
She said it was her second favorite, so that was good enough for me. Anything that happened after that was gravy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should say, I know you're bit. You probably don't. Let me give you the elevator speech and kind of the origin, the point of my podcast, because I'm not necessarily gonna like focus on your career as an author. It's more about you telling your origin story. Um, and please remember, I'm not trying to get dirt. Anything you're not comfortable talking about, we don't have to.
Well,
Um,
a
I,
notorious oversharer, so
yes, you are. But so let me sum this up real quick. My mother had the idea in the 90s to sit down back then just with an audio recorder, handheld audio recorder, and interview her mother, my grandma. My grandma was born in 1908 and passed away in the 90s, so can you imagine what she saw in her life?
yeah, she went
From
through
going from horse and buggy to the car to the atomic bomb and landing on the moon, yada yada. And she never got it done. But then my mom passed away 3 years ago in 2022. It was sudden, but I remember after that I was like, I have to do this. I got it. This is my mom's idea. Now with the technology, it makes it super easy to do interviews and podcasts. So basically, I just like to hear people's origin stories so that when we're gone, our extended family, people that, children, generations to come, can hear the person tell their story instead of just hearing anecdotally from people that knew them. Um, I was lucky enough about a year before my dad passed, to record about 40 minutes with him, so it's cool because like whenever I want to hang out with my dad, I can just watch the podcast.
That's
So
cool.
that's kind of the point of this. But again, I don't want to get too much into nothing that you're not comfortable talking about. And I will also, I thought about it right before we went live. I think I know you're a Seahawks fan, so I apologize for the decorations in my room. But I am a
Oh,
Patriots
I
fan.
like the Patriots this year, man. That's good to see that program. I no, no, I think they're for real. No,
I feel like most of the sports fans are like, really, we wanted them to go away for longer.
it was almost uncomfortable to see how
Ye-
bad it was for a while. So I'm willing to give them a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bill Belichick should have just checked out while he was ahead. Let's go
Oh
ahead
my,
and
yeah, I can't even, that's still too soon. It's too fresh. I can't believe what's happened to him. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? But anyway, okay, it's more about you.
why if you were a 49ers fan or a Rams fan, you'd owe me a bigger apology. I've already processed what happened in 2012, so I actually have no
Yeah.
problem with passing from the 1.5 yard line. I just didn't like a slant. I would have rather done a naked boot or something like that.
Again, it's like, why didn't you just give it to beast mode? I
Well,
mean,
because
seriously.
he had I can see the wisdom behind that. You had a stacked front. There was 10 guys in the box. He'd ran the previous two downs and didn't get anything. So, I have no problem with passing the ball there. I think you just needed to get Russ out of the pocket and run a naked boot and something like that. I have no problem with the a slant's just a really dicey proposition when everything's so compressed there in the red zone. But yeah, I'm over it. I like drama. I like good stories. So that was a good story, even
No,
if I,
actually, I like your take on that because I think that's actually pretty accurate. I think he got too much crap for that. You're right. It made sense that he was thinking to not run him again. So anyway, let's let's get back onto the
we go an
topic
hour
here.
on this, but let's just whatever you want to talk about, man.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I've listened to you enough. And I've also found a bunch of interviews on your podcast. Kind of maybe where I want to start, because the first time you went to get lit at the beach, which is where I first met you,
All
your
right.
first appearance, you did bring your better half and the kids. And I want to say that was 2017 or 2018. It was before the pandemic, your first appearance. But I know your family was with you because I got to not really talk to her, but you guys got into town, and I happened to be probably at the hotel, and I saw your wife, and we just kind of acknowledged each other. Seems like a sweetheart. Do you mind talking about how you met?
No, no. We met at a bar where I used to where I used to work. My friend owned this bar called the Winslow Way Cafe, and I would sit at the edge of my own seat and I would scribble away. I'd go there and do stuff like line edit and just, I work really long days, like sometimes 12, 16 hours, and so I like to change my environment. Like now I'm out at the cabin and I sit in my green chair for like 8 hours and then I go out in the garage for the next 8 hours just to freshen things up. So I would go a few nights a week to this place called the Winslow Way Cafe and I'd sit over in the corner and either Sean, the owner, or another guy who became a dear friend, John Brooks, was the bartender. His ears are burning right now. And my wife was a waitress there, and I'm just one time after a shift, she sat down at the bar, and we had a beer together and headed off. And
And you said it's the Winslow
perfect sense
Cafe.
because she was 12 years younger, so uh, her biological clock wasn't like tick 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 tick. And also, I was an unpublished novelist at the time, and she just thought it was cool I wrote novels. Where somebody my own age, I was like, I think 35, she was 23. I think most women my own age would be like, all right, so you've written 7 unpublished novels. Maybe you ought to think about, selling insurance or something. So it actually really worked out well. And then, we allowed us to wait a little while before we started having kids. And so
Yeah.
it's all bliss. It's marital bliss, let me tell you.
And what was the name of the cafe again?
It's called the Winslow Way Cafe.
Is that up there in the Seattle area?
No, it's on Bainbridge Island. It's on a
Okay.
little island, 35 minutes from Seattle, where I work. It's right on the corner of Madison and Winslow Way. It's no longer there.
Okay. And she born and raised in the Northwest then, I'm assuming?
Seattle girl, and then she
Okay.
graduated from Evergreen, and she lived between Madison Park, and then her folks, her great grandfather or somebody had homesteaded some
Okay.
property on Cambridge Island. So
Nice. And you have again, not a lot of details, but you have two kids. I think it's a son and a daughter.
Three,
Three. Oh, geez, I'm not up on my research.
eight, eight, almost 13, and 16. So,
Okay. And two
I don't know,
boys and
two
a daughter.
teenagers. Yeah, boy 16, girl almost 13, girl 8.
Okay, got it. And with your, I've also heard you talk about kind of your upbringing. Um, yeah, I think you're gonna. I'm sure you are, but yeah, you're probably gonna be an amazing father to daughters because you kind of have a unique understanding of the female perspective, probably because of how you were raised
Yeah.
by, the single mom, and you had sisters. So,
Yeah, my
um,
sisters were kind of my primary caregivers. So yeah, I grew up I'm able to glean a lot of wisdom and a lot of insight into the female mind, which is different than the male mind in some ways. I'm not going to pretend the two things are not mutually exclusive, but there's differences, without making sweeping generalizations. Women in my experience tend to want to talk things out more and communicate, and men sort of want to internalize and punch each other in the shoulder and sort of like when possible circumnavigate the issue at hand and find some way to iron it out more indirectly, things like that. And so that female impetus, I think, to explore and to process emotions, and I think it's really helped me greatly as a writer.
yeah.
Uh, I'm not. That's helped me avoid, the male gaze or whatever. About my characters, have rich interior lives, and I credit with being raised mostly by women for a lot of that.
Which I think is actually really good and um, could be healthy. A lot of men that I've met in my life could probably use a bit of a dose of that. Now, at the same time, and we don't have to get political, but I don't want to get into the diminish. It's okay to be a man. I don't want to get in. I'm not saying that we have to the whole masculinity thing is bad. I'm not on that side, but I think there is a healthy balance, and we can learn from each other. Um, and unfortunately, you know this. Um, Men tend to mature and kind of develops later in life compared to women. Takes longer for our frontal lobe to develop, and sometimes we don't start having the epiphanies of what really matters, or just having common sense about stuff until later in life. And that's probably testosterone driven, and it's got to have something to do with millions of years of evolution where some of these traits served a purpose before we came into modern society. And we just,
There's that. I think it's
technology is
also
it.
sort of culturally dictated in many ways by, existing power structures and so forth, and uh, the genders being held to different standards at every point of their, it's both. There's some nurture and there's some nature in there, as with most things, I think.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yes. Um, oh, what did I just think? Oh, speaking of your writing, I do want to touch base on this because I am, again, halfway through this book, and this is another compliment. Sorry, but and it's going to remain nameless, but I just got the autobiography of somebody that I'm a big fan of. He's a celebrity, but I got his autobiography, and it was co-written. He had an author, and I think basically what they did is what a lot of famous people do is the actual author, the writer, will sit down and spend time interviewing the person, the subject, and then they write the book for them from the interviews. So it's I'm enjoying the read only because I can hear the origin stories and all these behind the scenes stuff of this person that I'm a real big fan of. But I was curious on this perspective from you. You would know more than I do. Once I start from the first paragraph, I kind of feel like the author that actually wrote it recorded it on some kind of audio file, fed it into AI, and had AI write the book because it reads, it doesn't flow. It reads just as if you transcribed the interview instead of a natural like narrative flow. Is this becoming a thing to just crank out books of famous people using AI?
He beats me. I don't know. I mean, it could be a sign of a not very accomplished writer as well. I don't, AI is capable of a lot of things. I'll be honest. I've used it for shorthand on not my personal research for my books, but sometimes with the podcast because sometimes I'll double up and do two guests a week and I
Yeah.
don't have time to prep and read everybody's. I can't read 2 books a week. I got 3 kids. I got 5 jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Directing a film. I'm doing a podcast. I'm writing books. I'm doing speaking gigs. I'm teaching a low res thing. So like there's some functions that you have to be careful of hallucinations, but like, you can drag a PDF of a manuscript into like Chat GPT and ask it for a chapter outline or something. Basically what we used to call the Cliffs Notes when we were kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's cheating a little bit and it's shorthand, but it does allow me to be informative in my interview. You know what I mean? It's better than not. I think it's more informative than if I were just to try to skim the book because
Yeah.
I maybe only have an hour and a half. So, but like, I don't, I think what you're describing also might be a product of just the creation itself, like interviewing a people and that person not knowing exactly how to organize it. And I always think a person should tell their own story and it should have a theme. One of the reasons I've never written a memoir, I'm still such a work in progress that I don't know what my character arc looks like, but I don't know that everybody has that. Just because they're famous or distinguished or whatever, I don't know that that means that they necessarily have the quality to organize and view their life through a lens that provides somebody. I mean, if I were going to be interviewed, I would think, or if I were to interview somebody, and I think I would probably conduct the interview in a linear fashion. I would say I doubt the book would turn out in a linear fashion, but just for the sake of the process, I think I would want to learn everybody, and so I would have some sort of insight into the person's life arc as themselves, so that in my further questions, I could kind of bring them back to the theme and ask them to speak to it, and so then maybe they eventually recognize the theme. Whereas I don't know that a lot of interviewers, look, I interview a lot of people, so I think in terms of interviewing arcs and shaping, everything's a story for me. So when I have a guest, I don't just have 20 scattershot questions like, a greatest hits. I'm going to try to shape it into an arc. And if things emerge during an interview, I'm going to try to harken back to them and connect them into just like any narrative. And so I think that, I mean, it's hard for me to believe somebody would just let AI write the book because then AI is the ghostwriter. I mean,
Yeah.
then the celebrity, whoever it is, could have done it themselves. I suspect it has more to do with how the interview is conducted. So I'm
Okay.
about to, I'm producing and directing a feature documentary, and
Yes.
I am not an auteur. So like I don't see the world visually. I'm not thinking in terms of in-camera tricks or trips. This is where my learning curve is going to be, is to make something visually dynamic. And but I do have an advantage over most of the documentary filmmakers that I talk to in that I already know what my arc is because a lot of documentarians will shoot 80 hours and then get to the editing process and then sort of discover their story then. And when they don't discover it, we've all seen what happens. The fourth wall disappears and then we get some sort of thin, facsimile of Sherman's March where it becomes about the filmmaker. But like even in I haven't started the principal shooting yet. But even in I'm going to have like 15 different interview subjects, but I already have a system in place for interviewing that has an arc. Every person gets questioned by the same arc for a million reasons. Because then when I'm in post A, I can kind of look at the interviews in a compartmentalized way because this story is going to be told with a sort of a shared narrative voice. Of course, I'll give each person a chance to freestyle. I'll give each person a chance to tell their stories or anything they want to share. that was beyond the perimeters of what I was asking. But like you see what I'm getting at here. The
Yeah.
line of questioning has an arc built in because I know the story of my subject. It's already happened. I know what the story is. I know what the impetus to create the film in the first place is. I know the story I want to tell. I want all of these people to assist in telling me. And the people I've chosen to interview, I know already they're people I know. I've known them all for 40 years. So I know that they had a similar experience to me. So, like, I would say, whatever happened with your celebrity memoir, I would like to give the writer the benefit of the doubt. I doubt he just plugged it into AI, maybe, but I just probably think there was a problem. I probably think they didn't rethink the interview. They think the interview through enough, or they didn't audit themselves as they went through the interview. Like maybe they had all their questions and they just that went all the way through
Yeah.
instead of like, any storytelling is not natural. The world does not happen in stories. Things hit brick walls, things fall off, things. So, like any story needs to be finessed, just as any joke needs to be finessed. There's going to be timing. There's going to be you need to have like a thematic call and response. You have to take all these things into consideration. And I mean, I think that applies to nonfiction as well as fiction. I mean, you can't just write a memoir that's just like I was in first grade and then I was in high school and then I mean, there usually has to be an effective memoir is going to have some sort of framing device, like some sort of larger theme that all of these chapters of the person's life speak toward. So, like, I think, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know ghostwriters that are very good at what they do. And then I'm sure there's ghostwriters that maybe it's the first time they've done that. And so,
Yeah.
they don't, it's a learning curve. But all I know is if you're going to tell a story, there's going to be some reverse engineering. If you're going to tell it in the most entertaining and more importantly, the way that actively involves the viewer or reader or audience.
I appreciate that. And I'm actually glad that you gave me that answer. I kind of feel like that was almost an insulting, naive question now. And now I'm going to give the writer
Well,
the
that's why I'm
benefit.
here is to insult you, Ken, because you're already beating yourself up 24/7. So I wanted to just kind of pile on to an easy target. That's kind of what I do. Oh, Ken's down. Let me kick him while he's down.
But no, I want to give because I want to give the author the benefit of the doubt. So I really appreciate you giving me that information.
If
I try
if
to be
if
self-aware.
giving them the benefit of the doubt is saying they're not very good at what they do, okay, good on you. Uh,
But that reminded me, obviously an author, but you were mentioning this documentary that you're working on, and of course I listen to the podcast, so let's plug that. Fresh Face in Hell. I know I've found it on Spotify, it's on YouTube, probably Apple Podcasts everywhere. And I've listened to every episode. I like
oh
what you're
wow.
doing. It's really cool. But I remember you interviewed the one guy who I think has a big part in this. He's a big, large man, and I feel like was he in the logging industry or
Well,
it was
Steve
several
Backus.
episodes ago.
Yeah, no, this isn't what the documentary is about. But I did actually, you're onto something there because I did
He had some
start
connection.
shooting a documentary years ago, but it was never edited. Like 25 years ago,
Oh,
I did start directing a documentary and we shot about, we must have shot 50, 60 hours of material, but we did edit a trailer for it, which but we ran out of funds and we
okay.
never.
I'm sorry. So that was a different documentary.
No, but that is my one experience and I learned from that too. I'm handling my questioning differently with the new documentary because I learned during that, even though I've never gone through the editing process of
Hmm.
the documentary film, like I have been through the production and interviewing process. So that experience definitely informed how I'm tackling this. But I was also kind of discovering that story more. This is a story I know. I'm always open to being surprised, and there's room for that. And my arc can sustain that. There's nothing within my arc that can't sustain new insight but I'm not going to change my impetus or thesis or premise for this thing because I was there and I've lived it and I've been processing it for 40 years.
Then I'm
So,
sorry. I feel like I've heard you talk about this.
well, I'm purposely not talking about the
Got it.
specific,
Okay.
just
Then
because
I won't ask. Never
there
mind.
is always there is always competitive.
Yes.
interests and people, and then you have to fight over assets and
You
so
don't have to explain. No problem. I'm looking forward to it when it comes out, though. I am curious because again, we're kind of the same. Well, you know, I don't know what you're 35. I'm 53. So,
yeah, 35.
but anyway, I was born and raised outside of the Portland, Oregon area. You spent your formative years up there in the Seattle. You were in the music scene up there. Um, you fronted a band for a while. March of Crimes. Is that what
Hmm.
it was?
Yeah, that was my teenage foray into rock and roll.
Yeah, so what was that? I did pick up on that. I think you were still living on the island, but you at some point got were working at a restaurant or something, bussing tables for your sister worked there. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, my sister worked at a place. My sister was 7 years older than me, so when she was, I guess, about a senior in high school, she was waitressing at a place at First and Yesler that was called John Patrick's, and then later changed to a place called Bogart's. And she would just, I mean, I didn't even have a social security card. It wasn't legal, but I would bus my sister's section, which was basically the whole restaurant, because there was usually just one waitress on shift, up the stairs, downstairs. So I was the bus boy. Probably worked out great for Brad Bogart, the owner, because he didn't have to pay. I wasn't on the payroll, and he got a free worker. But my sister, who is super gracious and people loved her, she did great on tips. So she would just pay me, whatever. She'd probably pay me $20, but
And
like
this
20.
place was in the downtown Seattle area?
Yep, yep, Pioneer Square, right in the heart of Pioneer Square, First and Yesler.
Is,
Uh, and so, yeah, yeah, I started working, and I started working at 12, and I've always had a job since
is
then.
that kind of how you got into the Seattle music scene? Because you were that was what placed you in the downtown Seattle area. Because you were in, let's be clear, you were in that scene before it became big. We're talking the
Oh, yeah, 10
80s.
years before it became big. But I really, skateboarding is what got me into the music. I started skateboarding when I was about 12, 11 or 12, and punk rock and skate culture, they're, you know, they're inseparable.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what got me into punk rock. And then when I was 13, I started a fanzine. And basically, I wrote the whole thing. Once in a while, I would farm out a record review or a show review to a friend, but I would write record reviews and show reviews and like goofy little editorials, and I would interview bands. And this is something I learned. I was pretty an industrious kid. I got terrible grades in school. I was I was a train wreck through school, but I was industrious and I always had side projects. And when I was really young, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I discovered the conceit of I'm a lifetime baseball fan, and I came up with the idea of writing all the front offices, all the offices of all the major. At that time, there was 26 of them, or maybe 28 of them. But and they would always send me back swag. They'd, oh, this is cute. Look, the kid, they'd send it to me as like a signed team photo or some wristbands or a pennant or something. And so I learned early on that ask and you shall receive. So when I was 13 and I started this fanzine, which was just, you know, I typed it on a typewriter, single-sided, Xerox copy at the library at a penny a page. I'd make a
So
hundred.
I'm sorry, I want to get in the minutia a little bit. I was going to ask, how did you print and distribute this? You were literally typing it out on a typewriter,
I typed it
copying
and then I
it.
took it down to the library, and copies were a penny a piece. I'd make about 100 copies, and then I would take it to the punk record stores and the skate shops. Basically, like I would take it to Time Travelers and Urban Renewal, basically the punk rock record stores, and I would just leave a stack on the. They were free. I would just leave a stack on the counter, and amazingly from 100 copies, I would eventually, it would take a couple months, but I would get like mail from Norway and like Barrow, Alaska. It was never New York City. It was never Chicago. It was always just some far-flung outpost where people were just starving for the youth culture. And I find it so fascinating. I wish I could have tracked how it happened, because I'm sure they had to have been pirated along the way and passed along. I don't know how they made them to the other side of the, but it was kind of inspiring and so different from now with the algorithm and TikTok where I could just, yeah, a kid could make something and instantly like they're in the algorithm. You can get a universal audience. I mean, it's still hard to sort out demand, but like it's not, I mean, a kid in Norway could see it 5 minutes after you posted it. This is old school, man. This is like I don't know how they got there, but I always found it interesting that they were from they were never from like urban or metropolitan or anywhere cosmopolitan. It was always like I said, Barrow, Alaska or some village in Norway, just people who were starving for this stuff.
So
And so
were you putting it out in manuscript form, or did you have like were you getting it bound and artwork on the cover and all that stuff?
stapled artwork I did myself, or it was just clip. I mean, it basically looked like a ransom note. You know what I mean? Since I had no real artistic talent myself, I can't draw beyond stick figures. Although there were some stick figure drawings, truth be told, there was a lot of like just pirated clip art, and it
Okay.
was. I'm not a graphic designer, and I still have. I've recollected thanks to this huge enduring punk rock community of people I've known for 40 years, I've actually collected like 4 or 5 of the issues. I had gotten rid of them all, but and they're hilarious, dude. Like I on the first issue, I spelled Seattle wrong, which is hard to do, but I spelled it with one T, and the T I remember was like a space needle. But that's how I initially met Mark Arm of, at that time Mr. Rep and later of Mudhoney was that
Yeah.
he wrote my fanzine to inform me that I spelled Seattle wrong on the cover. Um,
That
but
is
they're
such a
really
great
fun. I mean, these are
story.
from I mean, I was a little wise ass 13-year-old kid. They're just rife with misspellings, but dude, I was industrious. I mean, I was going to shows, all ages shows. I was back to the front office thing. That's when I learned that like, hey, I could get free records out of this. I could write a letter to SST or Discord or these punk labels and say, hey, I want to review your record. Can you send me a copy? And more often than not, I'd get a copy of a free record. You know what I mean? So that was a lesson learned from the professional baseball teams. And then it was that the fanzines what led me into the skateboard, led me to the fanzine, led me to the being in a band. I started the band March of Crimes when I was like the 13 or 14. And soon after we started playing gigs in Seattle and Portland, Olympia, and throughout the Northwest. And I met friends that I'd still have years later. And I some big people came through the band. I mean, Ben Shepherd from from Soundgarden was a guitar player, and Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam was a guitar player for a while. And
Yep.
Pete Droge, who's another well-known singer-songwriter, was the guitar player. So I have no musical talent myself. I can play like 2 songs on the bass guitar. No musical talent. I actually do have good pitch and tone, but I didn't use it. I mean, I was just screaming into a mic. I was a bit of an impresario. I had a lot of energy. I was good at booking the band. I was good at running around on stage, but I did meet a lot of talented people that way. So yeah, I made my contributions, but I wouldn't call them musical.
It is very cool that you were able to get your hands on some of the original copies. You said you have 4 of them of the
Yeah.
fanzine.
And I don't even
That's
know how many I made. There couldn't have been more than I'd put it between 8 and 11. I think I was producing the thing maybe once a month.
okay.
I think I was pretty regular about it, maybe once a month, maybe bi-weekly. But yeah, I think I've got 4 copies. I know my friend Rod Moody, who been in a million bands, and his first band was Deranged Diction, who moved over here from Montana. That was Jeff Ament's band too.
Yeah.
And Rod Moody found one. Steve Turner from Mudhoney, actually, he's a real pack rat. And like he found a Christmas card that he's never sent me from like 1983. He sent me that. And he found one of my fanzines because he liquidates some of that stuff because he's such a he's got look what I found. And he sent me and I don't remember where I got the other ones, but I
That
got 4 of
is
them now.
that is super cool. So doing the fanzine thing led into you getting into a band. You were the singer, but then also you were
Writing.
obviously under 21, but at some point at high school age, you're booking gigs in downtown Seattle for other bands.
Oh yeah, starting at 14. I remember
How the hell does that? I mean, it was a different time in the 80s, of course, but how are you getting into these clubs and booking bands?
they're all ages clubs. There's no alcohol.
Oh,
Before the fire codes put a kibosh to all of it, because we had a couple of, they call them riots or whatever, bonfire in the streets, people skateboarding through it, a big ruckus on the 210 boat kind of thing. They started to, nobody was really causing any problems, but like they created a youth curfew and like they just killed the whole scene. Like, but like there was, I interviewed this morning, I was interviewing on the podcast Larry Reed, who's kind of one of the godfathers of the Seattle underground. And like we were just discussing how within 2 blocks there was three vital all ages clubs that were art galleries slash venues slash like, we were just left to govern ourselves. And it was amazing. And so many of us during that period found our artistic impetus, not only musicians who wound up being rock stars, but also like people like the rock photographer Charles Peterson or myself or Tom Hansen, who's another writer, RIP, or Harold Hollingsworth, who's like a gallery painter. And like a lot of us just kind of we found each other and we found our impetus during our artistic impetus during that period. And it was really a unique thing. I mean, kids don't have anything like that now. I mean, I get they have their gaming platforms where they put on their headsets and talk, and I'm not going to denigrate it. I'm glad they have it. I mean, it is a community of its own type, but it was nothing like the sweaty, cigarette smoking, 40-ounce swilling, staying out till 3 in the morning when you're 15 years old, like kissing your first girlfriend, hanging out with guys that were like 26 years old. I mean, I was young. A lot, I mean, some of us were young, but a lot of these people were old enough to go to bars and things like that. But all the club, the punk shows weren't happening at bars. They were happening at these all ages clubs. But I was definitely on the younger side of that. In
and
fact,
were you
I
able to use, so there's these all ages venues. I'm assuming the bands, even when they're starting out like this, and again, sorry, I'm interested in the minutia of
yeah,
this.
quit apologizing.
Did the yeah, that's what everybody keeps telling
I'll
me.
take you down. Don't worry. I'll chop you up at the knees. You just be nice to yourself.
Do the venues like have the mixing board, the PAs, or are the bands just bringing in their practice amps and making it as loud as they can with their own microphones, or did these
Well,
venues
both,
have a
both.
sound
It
system?
depends. Some of the clubs I mentioned, like well, I didn't, well, the Metropolis and the Graven Image, and some of those clubs had their own PAs. But
Okay.
sometimes these shows were just at rented halls, like rented Eagles halls and stuff like that. And so, yeah, you were just playing with instruments or cobbling together the sound system. And then there was times where I remember once playing at the 13th precinct in Portland, and the sound man didn't show up because he went to Ozzy Osbourne, who was in town in Portland that night. And you might remember the 13th precinct. Um,
Yes.
I think it was up on like 12th or something. I don't
Yep.
remember. Um, but some nights you just had to sort of wing it. I don't. But the places I was talking about earlier in Pioneer Square in Seattle, in that sweet spot time of 83, 80 through 85, they had infrastructure, but they weren't run like clubs. I mean, you kind of felt if you went to those shows, you kind of felt like you had the keys to the asylum a little bit. It wasn't like strict, like there's a guy at the door and the owner's out there watching and there's all these. It was lawless, but we governed ourselves well. There were very few problems, actually.
And was this kind of in the era? Because obviously I'm familiar with the LA '80s music scene. Was this kind of the pay for play thing where you had to like?
Oh God, no. No, no, no.
Okay,
We had
that's
none of
good.
that. There was never any pay to play. That's what made Seattle unique. It was much more of a tight-knit community where everybody knew everybody. There was only a couple hundred of us, and at that point, Seattle was just a cultural outpost. I mean, like Seattle wasn't metropolitan yet. The New York Times wasn't writing about Seattle. Seattle was had no self-consciousness about its place in the larger culture like LA or San Francisco or even, Vancouver to the north. We had no record industry infrastructure. There was no stratification in the scene. There was no sound associated with it. Like San Francisco tended towards more of politically minded punk, and LA had its more OC adolescent angst sound. Seattle was just a mixed bag. I mean, you had You had punk rock with a little bit of heavy metal infusion, even some prog rock, some psych, just everything. And that's one of the reasons it produced I think, a unique sound. That and the fact that it wasn't really self-conscious about like how it was supposed to sound, or there was no A&R people. Nobody was trying to get a record label in 19 or a record deal in 1983, 1984. That was not until in the late 80s, some people started getting signed into labels like Homestead and SST and things like that, but not the big people, CBS, Virgin. Those people didn't come along until the 90s, and nobody was
Yeah.
kind of aware of, like, there was no such thing as there were not shows staged as what do you I'm missing the word that yeah. I just lost my thread.
So basically, you would just book these gigs, bands, and it was just, what, 5, 10 bucks at the door, just a cover charge,
Never four, never more than
$4.
four. And as far as the booking goes, I didn't book that many. Like, I mean, I the first one I remember booking, I mostly like help people get booked too, or I'd bring a band to one of the club owners. Like, I mean, so like I got the Melvins their first show outside of Aberdeen, Montesano. Like they'd
Yeah,
played
yeah.
some gigs within about 12 miles of Montesano, but I got them there first because we had already been playing some of the clubs in Seattle, and I think it was at the Graven Image with Larry Reed, who I just got off the computer with like an hour ago, and I said you gotta book this band called the Melvins. Another one was I brought so my parents were divorced and my dad lived down in Palo Alto.
Hmm.
And one time, I remember I was driving around in Palo Alto and I saw this van and it had a March of Crime sticker on the fucking bumper sticker. And I mean, like, there's like 10 of
That's
those in the
awesome.
distance. And so, like, at the stoplight, I think it was my dad, maybe even, that saw it or whatever. But somehow I met Eugene Robinson out of that, he was a student at Stanford, and he was the front man for Whipping Boy. He originally came from New York, and he continues in music and spoken word, and he's still out there. He's a great guy. But like, I remember I booked them at the Metropolis, and like there's these four college age guys from Stanford, and they slept on my friend Mike Fricky's floor, and I mean the show was $4. I mean, it's basically, when you were in a band touring in 1983, 84, you're basically just trying to make gas money. And
Yeah,
there's no motels. You're either sleeping in a van or you're just squatting because you know somebody. And so many times, like, somebody's van just broke down and never showed up. Or
yeah.
I was talking to Larry today about how when he was managing the U-Men, they got stuck in Arizona for like a number of weeks just squatting at Danny Bland's house, like, because they didn't have the money to go anywhere. So they were just like, the tour got kind of stuck. But
Wow.
that's the best way to be an artist in some
No,
way.
so I mean seriously, they were, it's cliche, but they were out there for the music. They weren't trying to get rich and famous. They were out there for the music. Is kind of
Yeah,
what it
no,
sounds like.
that didn't really enter anybody's consciousness until I would say at least like 1989 or so. Like, it was just have fun. And I mean, like, make enough money to make it happen, but nobody was trying to. I mean, I remember Jeff Ament telling me, Jeff said they got like, so I don't know, maybe it was a developmental deal or something. I don't remember what it was, but he said he remembered he got like $500, and it was like, holy shit, I just got paid to be a musician. And he just felt so rich. I remember, like, when I first published All About Lulu, I mean, my advance was originally going to be $500, but then Counterpoint, I was able to leverage that up to, like, I think $5,000, which, like, then was life-changing money to me because I didn't have any kids yet. And I wasn't a young man. I mean, I was pushing 40, but still 5,000 was a lot of money. And then I optioned it to film, and that was $10,000. And I was like, whoa. And now I'm like, $10,000. All right. Well, I'm pretty good at supporting a family of six for the next 5 weeks. It all changes. And I try to keep that ethos. I mean, Look, I'm still writing novels that aren't published. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
still finding new ways to fail. It's still all about the work for me. I mean, unfortunately for me, this is the best way I've ever learned how to make money because I bit by bit limited every other possible, venue for myself. I mean, I just, like any other possible career path, I just got nipped in the bud, and I had to make it as a writer. and I did to some extent, and it's working. It's sustainable, but like it's still not why I do it. If it all ended tomorrow, I'd still be writing books. I got to do the work. It's all about the work.
Yeah, and I remember your talk. It was Annie Bloom's books. Yeah, because I actually when I bought your book, and I also bought Willie's book, The Horse, but I got a bookmark. So that's how I remember the name. I'd never been to that bookstore until I went to there to see you guys.
That's a great bookstore in a great little neighborhood.
Yeah, it was. It was very cool. Um, but yeah, you kind of you shared some personal stuff. But it sounds like you've kind of, even though you are insanely busy, it sounds like you've kind of gotten a good semi-routine. You kind of described, these are the days I'm being the dad. These are the few days I go to the cabin and I write, yada yada. And your wife has her time at the cabin. Yeah,
That's the idea. But boy, when you get this many moving pieces, it's hard to. I'm
yeah.
happy. I'm lucky to pull that off 2 out of 4 weeks. But it's still what it is. You got to try to have. When you got a lot of moving pieces, you got to just try to structure it as much as possible. But you got to be ready to roll with the punches. You just never know what's going to happen with kids.
Yeah, and you shared some stuff because you were promoting Heart of Winter, so you shared some stuff with your mom. She's still with us.
Yep, she's in the
Okay, right.
next
But she
room.
is, I
Next
think,
room.
living with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
vice versa. Actually, this is her house where we live. Well, we're helping her keep it, but like the cabin, we have our own home out in the Olympic wilderness, basically. But
Right, right. Yeah, I'm trying to be vague on
better school
purpose.
options for us here. Easier for me to get to airports.
Yeah.
Culturally, a little more to offer, but yeah,
Yeah, again, I was trying to be vague on purpose, but I just wanted to check in. Um, it's obviously amazing what
yeah.
you're
She's still
doing.
here, 90. She's sleeping in a little later than usual, and she's winding up. But there's mornings where I go in there and I just like, "Ugh, you just gotta.
Oh,
Gotta
yes. Oh God.
I just like I'm a
Yes.
pretty deep sleeper, and I'm like,
Oh, shit. Yeah, I can relate. Oh, wow. But that is amazing that you've got to the place where you can do that for her now, near
yeah.
near the
Well,
end.
I mean, it's let's just say it's mutually beneficial because I couldn't afford to buy another house on Bainbridge Island. I own one house, but I couldn't. So it works for everybody, and it's great. Like I can get a date night once in a while because we can leave the kids at home and like stuff like that.
Yes.
It
Yes.
works. It's not just sheerly altruistic on my part. It's a mutually beneficial situation. The schools here are just a better, although I just think the school system's failing my kids anyway, but whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. God, that's a whole other topic we could go off on because my friend Krista, who the blonde woman that was with me at Annie's, it's my girlfriend. She's a middle school counselor here in Battleground, Washington. Been in the education system for like 30 years. So we talk about this a lot. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. But yes, I want to wrap it up. There's a couple of things I just want to say because gosh damn, you've been way too kind with your time. Let me embarrass you real quick. So the first time we met, again, was your first time at Get Lit at the beach. And just for context, I run the sound there. I set up the speakers and the microphone for all the authors. So, we
Yes, I
had,
finally remember. Now I remember
is that so
exact.
until now you don't remember how you knew me?
No, I remember vaguely meeting it, but now I actually have a picture of you, like where you were in the theater and like where we were standing.
Yes.
Like I think there was some muffins or something in the lobby,
So
kind of.
that was the Sunday part of it at the Coaster Theater, but then over
Right.
the weekend we do it at the Surf Sand Resort. You're up in the upstairs
Mhm.
room. So yeah, I'm the one that brings the speakers and the microphones. That's why I was there. But the first year you were there with your family. I mean, obviously you did an afternoon talk, I believe, and or God, no, you weren't the keynote speaker because you
Yes,
said
I think Jess Walter was.
yes, that's right. But I remember as we get through the afternoon session. There is like a 2 hour break until the dinner at 6 and the keynote speaker. And then, they set up, I think it was a plated dinner, and they have a bar at the other end of the room. And as soon as everything starts, there's a huge line, and I was running around. I don't know if I was trying to get some audio visual stuff set up or whatever for the author for who was
I'll
going to
bet you I
do.
brought you a drink, didn't I?
No, yes. Do you remember this? So this is what
I
I was
just
saying.
kind of, I kind of remember it, but I also, just from the way the story's set up, that sounds like what I do.
Well, what was no,
I
what
always
was so
appreciate the guy that's working.
well, what was so amazing was I had just obviously heard you talk. That's the first time I met you, and I just got a vibe. I'm like, this guy is down to earth. He's cool, and they give you with your purchase of the tickets, you get drink tickets. And I had a ticket and I knew I wanted something, but the line was super long. You were halfway through the line and I was trying to dial in my sound system. So I was like, you know what? He'll do this for me because he's cool. So I gave him my drink ticket. I said, dude, I'm trying to get this set up. Can you just grab me the IPA? And without missing a beat, you were like, yeah, absolutely, man. Then you brought it to me. So that's, again, very kind. And that kind of goes into something else I wanted to compliment you on or just recognize. I've heard you talk. It's kind of one of those don't meet your heroes because they might let you down. But I remember you talked about an author that had been somebody you really liked, and then you did meet him, and it was kind of disappointing. We don't have to mention names, but I was like, hey, you are one of the people that you defy the cliche. You have always been
That's
very
good to
kind,
know.
very approachable.
I just, I got my brand is just authenticity. I'm just going to be who I am. Sometimes I step in it, and sometimes I overshare, and sometimes I wear myself down, giving too much of myself. But I just remember even some people that were famously dickheads can appreciate, like Frank Sinatra and Joe DiMaggio, two guys that have reputations of not being the nicest guys all the time, but they always have to respect the your fans, the people like putting food on your table. There's that. And then I'm just also a genuinely curious person. My life, as far as ambitions go, is already surpassed anything I really ever imagined for myself. So it's not about I'm not a climb, climb, climb kind of guy. I don't, that's why I figured I probably got you a drink. I'm always like, if they run me around to one of these like fancy dinner things, you'll usually find me back in the kitchen talking to it's just, yeah, whatever. That's who I am. But it is disappointing when, I can't say I really understand it, but sometimes I don't know if people start believing their own press, or maybe it takes a certain amount of ambition for them to get to where they are. But I've always just thought, gosh, it's so easy to be gracious when you've got it all. You know what I mean? It seems like really like you almost have to work to be a dick. I don't
Yes.
understand it when I meet somebody that I admire and they're kind of a dick, except that maybe they don't like me. I come on kind of strong sometimes. I develop intimacy quick. So like I can see how I might hate me if I just met myself for like 5 minutes. I don't know. I usually pretty good quick judge of character, but I'm also, look, I'm just a curious person that wants to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I mean, this is who I write about is just people. So like, I mean, I'm not going to learn by closing the door in their face.
Yeah, and again, that was kind of the other thing is, I'm always trying to be hyper aware of not fanboying out or being annoying, because I would
Look,
randomly message
listen,
you.
like I demur to it, but look, in any artistic endeavor, chances are you're working at a deficit. So the truth is, I like hearing it. I mean, it helps me. I can't depend on external validation to keep going. This madness lies down that path. It's embarrassing to be complimented, but like I'd be lying if I said I didn't like to hear it. I mean, I'm out there working my butt off trying to connect with the end user, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term here. And so, no, I appreciate it. It's not a deeply seated self-esteem thing. It's just more like, okay, cool. I want to hear it, but I don't want to hear too much of it because it's like, okay.
Well, I guess to wrap it up, where I was going with that was, we've been trying to put this podcast together thing for even, I think when I realized you were going to go to Get Lit for the second time after the pandemic, I reached out about the podcast. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and
Pleasure,
I
man.
hope I'm never annoying. I'm not trying to be a stalker, but I do appreciate your work, and
Oh, Ken,
and
you're
I
very
think you're a
gracious.
cool
Don't
guy.
quit beating yourself up so much, man.
I'm in therapy, so I have a couple therapists that I can talk to about that. So
I can be
seriously,
a while.
I'm gonna close it down now. After I hit stop, just give me a second to say thanks to you. But yeah, I really appreciate your time. Latest book was Heart of Winter. Sounds like you have some more that might come out. And then definitely check out your podcast, A Fresh Face in Hell, anywhere you can find podcasts and on YouTube. So again, Jonathan, I really appreciate your time. All right.